What's going on, fishy friends? Really excited tonight to bring you the South Carolina Inshore Fishing Report with Chris Tweedy. But before we jump into that really quickly, uh, the TFC Plus plan is available, has a ton of extra content featuring Lady C, myself, uh, captains and kayak guides and anglers all up and down the East Coast, all the way to Texas. So if you want additional content and you want a really reasonable price to support the channel, go to our YouTube page on a computer is the easiest way to do it. It gets funky with mobile devices. On a computer, and click the join button. If you haven't already subscribed, shame on you. Subscribe but also join at a very low price point of $5 a month. You already give Netflix $20 a month. And this is customized for content that you want. So check that out and enjoy all the content we're adding, lots and lots more every day. Let's bring in the man of the hour. How you doing, sir?
Not too bad. How are you doing?
I'm doing really well. South Carolina fishing report is now, and we're going to jump right into the 2-minute bite. So what's going on down there in South Carolina?
So right now, February is probably what I'd call our slowest month of the year in terms of the action. It'll typically be our coolest temperature of the year. I'm mostly bringing in. Actually, the fishing's not horrible. It's just not conducive to like a tourist type bite. So lots of inshore slams and a lot of smaller fish. So like slot and smaller redfish, just undersized flounder, tons and tons of like what we call like dink trout. So like your like 7 to like 12-inch trout, where you'll find like one, there's like 50 of them there, and you can't find anything bigger sometimes. So we haven't really experienced yet that big trout bite yet. It hasn't really gotten consistently cold enough here to kind of like get the trout moving or schooled up in their typical winter pattern. So we're still waiting for that. In addition to that, like I said to you guys backstage, the shad bite's picking up here in our rivers. So right now we have seen a lot of reports of folks going out and throwing like small curly tail grubs and feather jigs and crappie jigs and shad darts and things like that, and getting into some nice roe shad. And then the striper and catfish bite should be pretty heavy. Once the shad run tapers off, they'll be the catfish and stripers will be right behind them. So there's a bite anytime you're down here. It's just really what you're after to dictate. So a lot of what the fishing we're doing now is artificials, and that's what we're really going to focus on tonight. I wanted to talk a bit about how to move from creating like a confidence bait in your mind to where do you go from there. I'm really thrilled. Yeah, let's talk about the question tonight for a second. Last month I went to a fishing show that my friends and Queen City Kayak Bass Fishing run up in Charlotte. I went to there was a great expo. I had a booth there for the charter. But I went there kind of with the idea that I wanted to partner with some of the folks in that huge fishing community and get a little more interactively involved with sort of what they're doing. So I shopped around some of the baits at the expo and wound up talking to the guys here at the Realm of Fear. So my friend Steve runs it. He basically started as kind of like a hobby pourer and just got to the point where there was sufficient interest in both on his part and in customers to pay for it. So he dove in, and I'm going to actually be working with them this year and feature some of their baits, and they're going to be kind of the foundation for what we're talking a little bit about tonight. But the great thing is that these guys send us like a $50 prize pack to give out tonight. So I have a really cool Richardson trucker hat and 4 packs of baits that you could call freshwater, but I tend to use them both fresh and saltwater, including 1 or 2 that we'll specifically talk about later. So whoever has the question tonight is going to get have me send that out to them by the end of the week. So we'll just need to get their information. But anyway,
and I would say, can you show us it? But you sent me some pictures tonight that I think will give people a sample of what they're going to get, and I'm excited about the conversation because there's some really interesting baits that people don't tend to associate with inshore saltwater fishing. So I'm excited about that.
absolutely. So did I send you a picture of the prize pack itself, or can I?
You sent me. I think you sent. Let me pull the best picture that I think showcases that.
Okay,
It.
I'll grab you one. Anyway, so here's kind of what the basis of the conversation is. I have a firm belief that when it comes to inshore fishing, especially where I am, and probably like North Carolina through Georgia, down into Florida, where you guys are, down in on the Gulf Coast. So a lot of the fish that we're after are going to respond the same, fresh or saltwater. So things that fit a similar simplistic profile, if you can develop a confidence in throwing those types of things, and for me, that's going to typically be a jig. You can really kind of go just about anywhere and figure out, if you can figure out what to look for and find the fish, you can relatively easily and regularly expect to get them to bite. So while the best thing you can throw is the thing you're the most confident in your ability to catch something with, and whether that means you catch like 2 fish on an outing or you catch like 50 fish on an outing, like it's the thing you're going to go to when you like your back's against the wall and it's desperation time. Like, I'm not getting skunked, I'm putting this on, and it's the same thing every time. So it doesn't matter what it is. It can be something completely different for everybody in every, like, but for me, it's going to typically be like a 3-inch paddle tail on like a finesse hook. So I decided to go to that expo with the idea that I was going to expand beyond that in terms of a profile to be comfortable both with myself to use as well as customers. So shopping around, I'm going to ask you to bring up one of the pictures now. I want that little worm that's clear with the purple up the middle into my hand. So I fell in love with this color. This is like a core shot, so it's clear, and it's called electric shad. So it's kind of like a purpley brown fade in there with some sparkles. So very similar to what I like to throw. I like a clear profile, like a translucent body with some darker, more natural colors. So purple and brown work perfectly for that. So rather than having a paddle tail, it's like a TRD style kind of worm, Ned worm they call it. So so that's their 3-inch Ned. So that was what I initially started with. And the first time out, I was 10 minutes into fishing, and I caught that like 29-inch redfish that you can see in the net in the one picture. Like,
is this your confidence bait now?
So I'm working on figuring out which one of these are. I'm actually fishing a bunch of their stuff. It's been like a month yet, and the weather hasn't been super great here. So I've only gotten really to test them about 4 or 5 times. So I'm really trying to figure out what I want my confidence bait to be. And I'm working through a few different things. So that I really like that profile though. And I'm fishing it just like the same way, like resting it on the bottom with small hops, like through the chutes and funnels where the fish are going to come through. So it doesn't have to be, I guess what I'm saying is, when you move beyond like your confidence bait, what to look for is something that's not freakishly dissimilar. You want to sort of take a step back and kind of look at it like, what's similar to this or what's close to this that I'm not kind of scared to take a step to. And it can be like, if you're fishing a jig and you can move to like deciding to throw, I mean, like it can be as easy as throwing a top water, but like say your confidence bait is like a 3-inch black and silver minnow, like find yourself like a shorter, like Zara spook that's silver and black, and like make the confidence about some aspect of what you're doing and like sort of find the relational confidence.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting what you're getting at, because you're telling people, you know, what I'm hearing at least is that, you know, it's important to branch out of your confidence bait, because your confidence bait is not going to be right for everything.
It not only that, but it just kind of continues to encourage you to sort of grow as an angler. Like the way to sort of hone it in and get to like, I can go catch a fish, I'm not going to get like skunked today or whatever. like but like most of us have this curiosity to sort of expand our arsenal beyond that, and we wind up buying all these baits and having like drawers or like hatches full of like stuff we never touch. I'm saying like find a reason to develop the at least like not so much confidence in it, but like realize that the folks that are selling these baits are selling them just as much to catch the angler in the store per se as they are trying to use their marketing to encourage you to believe in the bait. Because the more you have like any kind of faith in it, the better chance you're likely to have, because you're going to pay more attention instead of just kind of like, whatever, I'm going to throw this, I don't really trust it. So like a lot of folks will laugh at me if I gave them like, so I tested that Ned worm out a couple of times over the last week or so, and 3 out of the 4 people I used it with had success in getting it. I used different colors, but like out of the gate, I really didn't give them an option. So the one there, you can see the orange one, that clementine color one, is actually looks just like an orange lollipop you'd get like at the bank when you were a kid. And then if you look next to that, would be typically, that's the Ripple from the Realm of Fear. It's like a 3-inch paddle tail, but it's much similar to what profile I would typically choose like over the last few years. But like you can see the length and the shape without the paddle tail is generally the same. And like on that hook, all you're really losing is sort of that looser vibration in the tail. So if you just trust in your technique and slow down a little bit and just move that ever so slowly so you can feel it, and you're going to know when it's going to be the same sensation. The fish are going to come in and they're going to smack it, because like right now there's not a lot going on in the water. So like they're going to hone in on what's available and then give it a rock. So,
yeah, that rig, I mean, it's a Ned rig that's super popular in largemouth bass fishing. And, you're not even close to the first guy that I've seen use that on redfish. Our guy, Captain Massa down in Georgia, our correspondent for the Georgia Inshore Fishing Report, has started doing the same thing, and he's smashing them.
Well, here's the thing. What I'm really trying to do is to demonstrate to folks that aren't proficient saltwater anglers that maybe they crappie fish, maybe they bass fish or catfish or whatever. They can take what they know and apply that to saltwater and still have a reasonable chance at success. So if you feel like you've already got like either in your arsenal or even in your tackle box the equipment you need to go for 800 whatever miles to fish somewhere new or different, like you got a fighting chance. So yeah. I want folks to believe, like, okay, so I have a story about a friend that was really struggling every time we would go out, and he grew up going with his dad to New York, upstate New York, and they would go fish like near like the Thousand Islands and stuff like that. And so they would fish like tube jigs for smallmouth bass and brim and panfish and stuff like that. So I was like, you know what? He just couldn't get like how to fish the marsh. So I'm like, pretend you're fishing a tube jig back, like pretend you're bouncing it along the rocks as it goes like down a bank on a river or something like that. Or you found sort of like behind the dam on a freshwater lake, and you're working it there, trying to like hit every little nook and cranny, and suddenly it worked. Like I was like, I don't care if you throw a tube jig, that's fine, it'll work. So it's just a matter of like figuring out what you know and how to apply it. And a lot of what I do is a balance of that, along with like sort of being a sports psychologist in terms of like helping somebody get out of their own way. Like those are pretty much the two keys that would make, like, I think, kayak guiding at least successful.
Yeah, this is all great stuff. I mean, I think about the number of times where I've gone to my confidence baits and, they don't work, and it makes you feel exasperated. You're like, wait, this is what I always catch fish on. And then sometimes I'll just throw something crazy that doesn't fit my routine. Doesn't mean it wouldn't work. Mm-hmm. It doesn't fit what I would normally go through in terms of my process, and it does great. So, sometimes you got to try it to really branch out. We do have a lot of questions.
Sure.
Some questions rolling in. Let's see. We have Rodney Green ask, how many rods do you rig up for your fishing day?
So personally, I'll generally go out with 2 or 3 rods. I don't really I don't believe in taking the kitchen sink with me. I'm very minimalist. I don't typically fish with a fish finder. But I have like, when I went out to explore these Realm of Fear baits, that Steve sent me to play with. I really just kind of rigged 2 or 3 different types of jig heads up, or like an offset worm hook, just because I knew what I would have wanted to do. So I tend to go out with, like I said, 3 rods, and most of the time, one of them is going to be a little stiffer, so I can like work a top water the way I like to, and then other than that, it's just generally going to be like a medium light 6 to 7 foot rod, with like an extra fast tip. So, and that's whether I'm fishing for sharks or whether I'm fishing for like pinfish. It's the same setup, doesn't matter. So I believe like the folks that spend too much time figuring out how much money they can spend on stuff to put in their kayak are kind of missing the point. So like I don't have an 8-9 inch monitor on my, like, with none of that stuff. So minimal baits, minimal jig heads. Like I know what I need for most of the time for where I'm going. And like, I don't care so much about how specific the weight of the jig head is, like how heavy it is, if it's as heavy as it needs to get to the bottom. So it's about feel for me. And I try to teach that to folks. It's not like a formula so specific that like, if you're 1/16 of an ounce off on a jig head, it's not going to make the difference in like being successful or not. Like, it's not that exact. It's about being where the fish are and like knowing that they're either there or they're coming or they were there, and making the right decision based on that, more so than like anything that's in my hatch is ever going to show me. So like, not to say I don't have like bait binders and like tackle bins full of like random stuff that I've accumulated over, like, God knows I have an A-rig that I've never seen water other than like accumulated mildew or like humidity on the window. So, but like, I don't still know when I'd ever throw that and what I'd use it for. So, yeah. I mean, I know there's applications for it, but like, not taking a lot of stuff is the key for me. Like, I flipped over in the ocean once and like lost hundreds of dollars worth of stuff. And like, ever since then, it's just, I don't want all that stuff there. So
yeah, you're exactly where I've landed in terms of kayak fishing. If I'm in a kayak, I want to embrace the minimalism of it. I love it that you don't fish with a fish finder. To me, it's such a, I don't know, the tangible things about kayak fishing, that you can sort of feel the water right at you. You're right on the water. Your ability to get in touch with nature is better in a kayak. And then in terms of bringing stuff, you've got so little real estate to work with on a kayak. Why clog it up with a bunch of stuff that just can get tangled and create a mess? And I mean, I'll bring 2 rods on a kayak and have no problem whatsoever.
Exactly.
And I bring 2 to 3 rods on a boat and I'm perfectly happy.
I'm typically showing up with 2 or 3 rods total. And then like, that'll be with a base, and then I'll add a rod for each customer I have, so that I can easily switch stuff out in terms of like needing to be agile in terms of what I'm doing.
Got a couple more questions coming in. One from Doug King, a new viewer. Thanks so much for watching, Doug. He says, I will be fishing inshore for the first time at the end of April. What species, and he mentioned earlier that he's like a lifetime freshwater fish angler.
Right.
What species bait and rod would be recommended to start with as a beginner? His background is with soft plastics for largemouth bass.
So where are you going is a huge component of that in terms of like what the local stuff is. And like, if you're going to be like the mid-Atlantic down to like Texas, you can pretty much count on like redfish, speckled sea trout, and then mixing in stuff like striper and snook as you travel up and down the coast, and flounder in certain areas and things like that. So for the most part, most of the inshore stuff that I would say you can catch anywhere, you can typically catch with, like I was saying, like a medium action 6 or 7 foot, 6.5 to 7 foot rod with like a 2,500 to 3,000 size reel with 15 to 20 pound braid and like a 15 to 20 pound plastic leader. I don't really care to get into like the fluorocarbon mono debate. Like whatever I grab it, well, like whatever, it's fine. So generally speaking, you can pretty much go anywhere on the East Coast and find like an inshore marsh and probably have a fighting chance as far as what you're throwing. So I'm around a lot of oysters, so there's certain things like hard body baits I can't do anything with. So what you're talking about with soft plastics for largemouth bass is perfect. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm throwing everything from like curly tail grubs to you saw like you can, if you want to bring up a couple of those pictures, just cycle through them, you can
Sure.
see they're all bass baits essentially that I'm using, and different profiles, but like split tail minnows, like fluke style baits, those TRD type worms that um the ripple minnows, um, even stuff like a crawfish is going to imitate like a crab. So if you're somewhere that there's crabs accessible, like that would work. So the best thing you could probably do for yourself is to get yourself some scent. So find out like what the prevalent local inshore kind of bait is, whether it's like menhaden or mullet or shrimp or something like that, and get like a bottle of Procure or something like that, and put the heck out of that on your bait. And the like the bottom feeding kind of fish like the red and black drum and to some extent the flounder and the trout will all respond positively to like baits that have scent in them.
Yeah, I'll add to that, Doug, and say that, you know, if your soft plastics are fantastic, stay on that route. If you're fishing less than 5 feet, stick to a 1/4 ounce jig heads or less. If you're fishing, 5 feet to 20 feet, you can go, anywhere from a 1/4 ounce to an ounce. And then anything over 20 feet deep, you want to be using over an ounce in terms of jig head weight.
If you're a beginner, you probably shouldn't be fishing 20 feet deep.
That's tough.
Inshore.
Yeah, that's tough.
So the best thing advice I can give you in terms of weights is this: you need to get to the bottom. So the weight is going to vary depending on the current. So sometimes it needs to be heavy, sometimes light. So anyway, let me see if we can get to a couple more questions if you have any.
Yeah, we do. We have one from Carl Ward. He asks, do you ever fish a popping cork? If so, what do you use under it?
Yes, sometimes. I'm not a fan of popping cork fishing, and for this reason, it's not. I feel like the perception is sometimes it presents to customers gives the wrong impression. So I feel like sometimes they feel like I'm setting them up with like a bobber and like some worms or something like that. So, but there are ways to effectively fish a popping cork, and the key to that is adjusting like the length of the leader. Along a grass line for an aggressive trout bite, a popping cork's a blast because you just pop, 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 boom, and it's gone. So I'll fish it a lot of times if I'm trying to cover ground quickly, but don't want to miss fish in a variety of depths in the water level. So if I'm fishing a new area, it's a great search bait. What I want to do is try to find something about 60% of the depth of the water you're fishing. So say like you something from say like 1 foot to 3 foot, you probably want about a foot long leader. So anyway, you just need to adjust your leader as you go, so or else you're going to fish like way under or over the fish. That would be the key. But I like a popping cork. I'll sometimes fish it with live mullet or like minnows of some kind on it, or shrimp. So there's
like finger mullet.
Yeah, finger mullet. Even cut a mullet in half and let it wiggle around on there. You'd be surprised how effective like it is to grab an easy kill like that than
Sounds
it is
good.
with some scent.
Doug just followed up and said he'll be fishing in Myrtle Beach. So honestly, Doug, I would book a trip with Chris.
He's a little far. He's a bit far from me. I'm like going to be like an hour to 2 hours, 2 hours away from him. There's a couple of great guides up in your area for sure. And what you're going to be looking at is this. There's not a lot of access. So Myrtle Beach is going to likely be a whole lot of beach fishing. So they won't let you target sharks there. And in April, there's not going to be a whole, or like in April, there's not going to be a whole ton of stuff going on the beach in terms of like just walking up and throwing a line. If you want to reach out to me, I can either help you myself or point you in the right direction for sure.
Perfect.
Feel free.
Can you answer one more question quickly? Because we're
absolutely
just about out of time. Carl asked, what do you all have for saltwater panfish? Like we have white perch and spot in our tidal waters.
Yeah, so we have basically like what we consider sort of like our inshore like bait stealing sort of quote unquote trash fish, but some of them are edible to some extent. So it's going to be stuff like like we're gonna have mullet, we're gonna have a lot of pinfish, we're gonna have juvenile black sea bass, a variety of like juvenile grouper that are all like well undersized, like 6 to 8 inch grouper. We'll have oyster toadfish. We'll have the gaff top catfish, stuff like whiting, and like your variety of like little tiny drum and stuff like that, as well as like dogfish and like little tiny sharks and stuff. So those tend to be sort of more or less like, or we'll get some puffers like northern puffer as well as so yeah.
Most those pinfish are freaking annoying, man. They will like tear up your soft plastics. All right, well, I am super excited about this Realm of Fear $50 prize pack and a hat. I mean, dude, this is off the hook. Custom baits.
All right, so let's see.
Have we decided who the winner is?
Yeah, and I'm not going to remember the names this time, just the questions, unfortunately.
Oh, it's all right. Just I can scroll up and do the questions.
I think the one of the better questions we had was the first one we had about the jigs.
About the jigs?
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. So we had questions from how many rods, and then there was
okay.
There was Doug who asked what species?
Yeah, no, I think the rod question is a great one. It really don't have anything to do with the confidence bait issue, but whatever. That was sort of sprung a larger discussion. Yeah.
How many rods do you rig up for your fishing day? All right, Rodney, you are the winner.
If you get me his address offline, I'll get that in the mail to him tomorrow.
Will do. You'll be mailing it to Independence, Missouri, so I'm sure
that's fine. So there's some great stuff like some like punch bugs and stuff like that in there. So and the colors are fantastic. They remind me of like this looks like this grape color looks fantastic.
Oh yeah, that'll crush it on largemouth. Yeah, for sure.
I'll be actually using these on freshwater charters as well for like bass and bowfin and stuff like that. So
well, I will send you Rodney's information. Chris, thanks so much as always.
Thanks for tuning in
for the last fishing report of the evening. We're going down to Central Florida, East Coast, and Chris, we'll see you next time. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching.
Thanks,
and tune in a few minutes.
Have a great night. Thanks, guys.